Ugh. Hi.
A powerful thing, and almost nothing can beat the unbreakable bond between a mother and her own child. But what would you do if your son was the very thing putting you in severe danger? Beverly Liggett faced this problem, and as her son made his way into adulthood, he developed—
Is this video a little quiet? I think it's a little quiet.
morbidly dark fascinations that even included herself. All of this would fall over a cliff's edge in October 2012, and the consequences behind Ari's actions would leave the family in ruins, a community in despair, and a harsh spotlight over America's mental health system.
Why does it do this? Oh well.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, folks.
Why does it default to 360p every time?
My name is Adrian, and welcome back to another video by Coffee House Crime. Today we're looking at the heartbreaking case of Beverly Liggett. By the way, did you know that I post true crime and strange cases here weekly? So if that does sound like your kind of thing, please consider subscribing to Coffee House Crime. But before we begin, I wanted to say thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video.
We got a Nord
Now,
sponsor,
let's go grab some
right?
coffee.
Coffee and VPNs. Wait, hold up.
Oh yeah, how you doing?
Good, you?
Yeah, not so bad. I'll go for a filter coffee if that's okay.
Cool.
Dude, the production value. Hold up.
Hey Tom.
Wait, what? Yo, hold up. What are you drinking here? What? That an Americano? Why does it doesn't look like an Americano because it's lighter. Maybe it's just like a cold brew or something like that. Sorry, I'm judging his coffee.
The Rocky
taste.
Mountains,
Sorry,
endless prairies, and hundreds of breweries. These are just three of the many special characteristics of Colorado. Found slap bang in the middle of the US, Colorado is surrounded by jaw-dropping mountains and is entirely devoid of an ocean
I've never been to
coastline.
Colorado.
So it's probably no surprise that its capital city, Denver, is commonly known as the Mile High City.
I didn't want to say it. It does look like watered down coffee. I didn't want to say that though. I didn't want to bash his coffee taste.
Now, we've been here a few times already in previous cases, so for today's video, we're zoning in to focus on one of Denver's many municipalities. Incorporated in 2001, Centennial is actually one of the state's newest cities. And if you haven't guessed already, it's gained its name after Colorado's nickname, the Centennial State. And with a population of 110,000 residents, it has a great range of amenities while still retaining that cozy small town vibe. It's home to several large corporations such as Comcast. And did you know it has the second largest IKEA in all of the US? I'm somewhat struggling here, by the way. There is not much more to say about this place. Its boundaries with Aurora and Englewood confused the hell out of the Postal Service.
What the fuck?
And in recent years, the city's experienced a very steep increase in the local coyote population. Centennial is relatively unremarkable otherwise. That would at least be the case until October 2012. Here, in the leafy suburbs of Centennial, we find the Liggett residence, comprising of mother Beverly and her two children Ari and Livia, living in a 5-bedroom rented—
I've never been to an IKEA. There's actually an IKEA in St. Louis, which I'm pretty close to. I've considered going to, but I've never been.
Home on East Peakview Avenue, the family of three had enough space to really sprawl out. 56 years old at the time, Beverly was born on October the 1st, 1956. She grew up with her father Edwin, mother Barbara, brother Steve, and sister Martha. And although not much is known about her childhood, she continued to live in the local area even into her adult years. Due to several mental health issues, which we will get to later in the story, Beverly missed out on higher education as a young adult. But after finding her feet and finally establishing what she wanted to do with her life, she studied and then graduated from nursing school in 2011. Already a mother of two children, she opted to work with children with special needs and found great satisfaction in doing so. And despite graduating as a woman in her 50s, she was well known by many classmates half her age as a petite—
Classic building up the character, building up Beverly in order to be like, she dies! Yeah! All of that happiness and great life that she had, gone. I know your tricks.
feisty brunette with a very caring personality. Focusing on things back at home, Beverly had a son named Ari and a younger daughter named Livia. Now, unfortunately, she had broken up with her biological father, Ron, meaning she was a single parent with a full-time job. But saying that, things were not all too bleak in the romance department. Scaling back to the year 2006, she found love with a man named Seth Messiah. The two met on a Jewish dating website, and it really was love at first sight. And now, since they had been together for just over 5 years, both of them had serious plans to marry. There were things in their way to begin with, however, because first they would have to find a more permanent place to live together harmoniously. And unfortunately, there were other obstacles to overcome too. One of them being Beverly's son. So, this is probably a good time to focus our attention on Ari Liggett. Born in the year 1988, it means that he was 24 years old when this story takes place. Unfortunately, life wasn't easy for Ari. He was first diagnosed with a developmental disorder at the very young age of 5. And unfortunately, in the following years, he was diagnosed with several other mental health issues too. Some of these even requiring him to be hospitalized 6 times over the next several years. Even as a child, there were several signs to support concerning clues around his mental health. He would never explore the outer world, and only cling to the clothes of his mother and father. He also often paced around, talked to himself incessantly, and never tried to make any friends. Alongside the various challenges that developmental conditions bring, he was also judged to be very different compared to his classmates, which unfortunately led to bullying. He was known to automatically switch between eerie periods of silence and random outbursts of anger, which is something that others sadly berated him for. Not entirely understanding why he was different, but fully knowing that he was unhappy, Ari blamed his mother and, unfortunately, spent many years harboring a deep hatred for her. This was primarily because Ari knew that Beverly had issues with her own mental health too. So not only did he recognize this pattern, but he also blamed her for passing it on to him. Beverly had a long and troubled history when it came to bipolar disorder, which, as many of you will remember from another case by Coffeehouse Crime, can sometimes be very disruptive to someone's life.
Yeah,
a person with a condition will typically experience depressive phases or manic phases that can last for days to weeks and occasionally months. Though it is important to recognize that there are extended periods of relative stability and normalcy in between. Severity varies massively between people. Some will experience minimal disruption to their life, whereas others will need medical intervention, therapy, and in rare instances, sectioning to help control their condition. And unfortunately, it appears as if, once upon a time, Beverly struggled greatly with bipolar. Personal entries made in her diary in 1999 suggested that she was contemplating taking her own life. In one of her entries, she shared, "I have no life, I want to die." It seems though, in her older years, she had managed to get her condition under much more control. She had been taking Tegretol for several years now, which, by the way, is an anticonvulsant often prescribed to treat the disorder. To add to this, long-term friends recall that in the year 2012, she seemed to be at her happiest. There were several reasons for this, but to begin with, she was looking forward to her new career and even a new life with her fiancé, Seth. And with both Ari and Livia now becoming adults, she would soon be able to get her own freedom back too. Neighbours around the Liggett residence described the family as very private, but friendly whenever they crossed paths. And for the most part, nothing ever seemed affray. But behind closed doors, a tremendous amount of trouble was brewing. Ari had become an unbearable and unstoppable pain in Beverly's backside, and sadly, it was only worsening. With Ari's various mental health issues snowballing, the family desperately tried to help him with therapy and medical assistance. But unfortunately, he would only push back at any intervention, and soon after even began to get in trouble with the police. He once threatened his mother and sister so seriously that they had to call the authorities on him, resulting in Ari being arrested and warned about his behavior. But even after this, and as the time went by, those threats would only become more severe. As the new decade approached, Beverly was openly living in fear of her son. She no longer felt comfortable in her own home, but unfortunately, she loved him all too much to abandon him. And of course, if you aren't firm with your own boundaries, reckless behavior will always overstep them. You know, it wasn't as if Ari wasn't smart or clued up enough, and in fact, he actually used to be a student.
I wonder if he's the dude who ends up killing someone because all we're getting is mugshot picture. I wonder who is the criminal.
At the University of Colorado.
He kind of looks like Pig. Don't you fucking dare. Are you kidding me? I'm tall. I got a chiseled chin. I'm handsome, acne free. Don't you dare. No. Don't you dare. This limp chinned, fucking eyes too close together ass, forehead twice the size of his face. No. I'm absolutely shredded, 6'2". My hair looks way better than that garbage, man. Yee looking ass motherfucker, dude. I swear to God, I'm absolutely shredded. Look at it. Look at this beard. This fucking douched beard with the mustache. Come on.
Boundaries. Rest isn't that much
Don't
of a
you
cause
dare.
for concern these days. But what was much worse is he also grew extremely obsessed with chemicals. So I guess this is where our story starts to go downhill rather quickly. But in January 2010, Beverly found her son mixing chemicals in the backyard, which unfortunately meant the authorities had to be called. It was here that deputies found 2 containers of crystallized potassium ferrocyanide and a gas mask in his possession. And after looking at his internet history, they saw that he showed much enthusiasm for making it. 2 months later, the FBI got further involved after Ari ordered chemicals online and then asked the company to mail it to a post office box, which, yeah, is very anonymous and shady. The police raided his home as a result, where he was then arrested after he was found in possession of a homemade silencer for a firearm. Not even that, but Ari's actions even led Colorado to a bomb scare after he'd sent a package containing cyanide to a homeless shelter.
What the fuck?
The search conducted in the Liggett household was very concerning. Officers found several dismantled guns, homemade firearms including a modified rifle, a homemade silencer, and even more dangerous chemicals.
Let me guess, they don't do anything about it, they let him go, and then he ends up killing his mom.
Specific chemicals found in Beverly's home were potassium cyanide, which I'm sure many of you will know is highly lethal, and literally 1/4 of a gram of this stuff can kill you. As a result, Ari was booked on misdemeanor charges of reckless endangerment and felony charges of possessing a dangerous weapon. But after pleading guilty to the misdemeanor charge and receiving 1 year of probation, he then received a deferred sentence for his felony charge. Regretfully, Ari seemed to fly off the handle after this,
1 year
and
probation.
even threatened to kill his mother and sister, and as a result, they took him to a mental health facility where he was kept as an inpatient for several months. Also, I forgot to mention, but after several extreme anti-Semitism remarks, he was also placed on the FBI's watch list. This was despite his
holy shit! This guy's unhinged.
Strong Jewish heritage, but it's likely because he was angry at his Jewish mother and Jewish soon-to-be father. Beverly further told the police that Ari had recently made several comments that he would get rid of the family by any means necessary, and of course, this gravely concerned her. She knew that her son was the type of person to become obsessed, hyperfixate on things, and then follow through with the idea. After eventually being released on probation, he was most recently diagnosed with autism, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and psychosis. Undeniably, he was in a downward spiral, and without any medical intervention, this would only go one way. To make things worse, his relationship with his mother was deteriorating by the day. There were several reasons for this, but allegedly, the main problem between the two centered around her relationship with Seth. Beverly and her fiance were becoming very serious after several years. They wanted to take things to the next level, and were even entertaining the idea of marriage and moving in together.
The government
but
wishes they could
unfortunately,
kill all
in
the
order to do
homeless, to be
this,
fair.
it meant
Yeah,
that she would
true.
have to leave the family
Very
home
true.
and thus leave Ari to fend for himself. The idea of his mother moving out and supposedly abandoning him seemed to severely piss Ari off. I mean, yeah, fair enough, Ari did need a solid foundation to grow from his currently unstable state, but he was also a full-blown adult, and the responsibility to get better was his and his alone, and so far, he was so reluctant to accept any help. On the other hand, both Beverly and Livia were literally living in fear under the same roof as Ari, and no one should have to accept such a terrible living condition. By the year 2012, all the tension and hostility had become all too much for Beverly to bear, and the damage that Ari had caused had clearly left its mark, because it was in that moment that she decided to remove his name from her will. And Ari, he would take this decision badly, very badly, because on October 14th, 2012, Beverly Liggett suddenly disappeared.
Oh.
By the evening of October 14th, 2012, Beverly's silence had been noticed by those closest to her. Livia was unable to contact her mum, and Seth hadn't heard from her either. So when Seth tried to call the family home on October 15th, and Ari picked up trying to imitate his mother's voice, he knew that something had terribly gone wrong. With growing concern, friends and family reported her missing to the police, and when officers arrived to perform a welfare check that evening, they too grew suspicious. Although no one appeared to be home, officers were able to verify activity on Beverly's credit card within the local area. The police were instructed to be on the lookout for the registration plate of Beverly's vehicle, and 2 days later they finally got a match. A police officer working in the Greenwood Village suburb of Denver, located around 4 miles northwest of Beverly's home, grew weary and then stopped a vehicle that was behaving suspiciously. After scanning the license plate, he determined that not only did the vehicle belong to Beverly, but it was also associated with Ari himself, who was also reported missing. Approaching the vehicle, he noticed a young man with long hair acting erratically, and although the driver appeared to be Ari, he wasn't sure at the time. With firm hesitance, he ordered the driver to turn the car off and place his hands through the window. However, it seems the driver was in no mood to turn himself in. Slamming his foot on the accelerator, he sped down the street, thus beginning a high-speed chase with officers. And if you haven't guessed by now, the man driving Beverly's vehicle was indeed Ari. While attempting to make a right turn, Ari lost grip on the road and then spun out of control, his car becoming immobilized when he hit a concrete wall. Trying to make a run for it, multiple officers chased him on foot, and eventually, with nowhere to run, Ari threw his hands up and surrendered. And while being tackled to the ground, other responding officers inspected his vehicle. However, I'm sure they wished they never had to, because what they would find still haunts them to this day.
Yeah.
After opening the car's boot, they noticed multiple large containers within. And inside those containers, they found the dismembered remains of Beverly Liggett. That was when this footage was recorded.
At this point, they're still unaware of his mother's remains hidden in the trunk.
I mean, you guys tell me to put my hands out the window. Yeah, I said put your hands out the window, not start the car back up and take off.
Listen closely. Liggett immediately tells officers he's insane, claiming he's schizophrenic and autistic, and asking police if they'll still press charges.
I can't tell right from wrong. I'm insane. My psychiatrist will convince you guys that there is not probable cause.
Dude, fuck off. Literally fuck off, you piece of shit. Doesn't matter what fucking mental issues you have, bro.
Criminal charges.
After arriving
so
at the crash
quirky,
site,
please don't
dash
arrest
cam
me.
footage shows officers approach Ari and his vehicle. Ari then told officers that he was insane, schizophrenic, and autistic, and then asked them if they would still press charges if he could prove he was insane. He then told the police that the world is one big conspiracy, before being led away in handcuffs. Responding officers were dealing with two very large issues here, because on the one hand was a dismembered body in the car's trunk, yet on the other was a totally insane man. No one was really sure what to think of Ari at the time, because yes, he could have been delusional and crazy, or maybe he was acting to plead insanity later. Ari further claimed that he was a god, and that everybody else could read his mind, could see the future and the past, and could even shapeshift. Under very obvious suspicion that Ari may be involved with his mother's death, he was then taken to the local sheriff's department and an interview was
a little bit of a suspicion that he had to do. You mean how his mom's dismembered body was in the back of the vehicle that he was driving around? I wonder who could have possibly killed his mother. Who could have done it?
Was conducted. This interview was very, very bizarre to say the least, and it mostly went like this.
Everyone has these telepathic powers. I don't understand why I'm here. You know, you should be commending me for being the way, the truth, and the light, and instead you get, in an accident and a little bit of a speeding chase with a Greenwood Village police officer, and it's like you want to end me because of one possibility that you see.
Ari said many concerning things during this interview. This included, ever since I was little, I felt that everyone has basically all the powers of God. They can shape change to the past and the future, anywhere, anytime. I think it's possible that I'm the only one who doesn't have those powers yet. When asked if his mum was hurt, Ari told officers that he believed she might have taken her own life. that she did so by ingesting potassium cyanide, and that it was because she was bipolar. Ari further claimed that he found his mother dead.
Oh, okay. So he didn't. So she cut up her own body and then put it in the containers. All right, I got it.
Panicked because he needed money, and then decided he would cover up her death to continue using her credit cards. He was very forceful with the idea, even trying to convince officers that 5% of people suffering from bipolar will take their own life. He further told them that it would be impossible for him to poison her without her noticing because of the strong odor and taste. However, then again, he also told investigators the following: "I'm possessed by demons, and their knowledge of the Force is just physically, or whatever you want to call it, stronger than mine. We live in a corrupt society where I am the highest. I am God, so there's no one who can teach me how to be free. You know, I wanted out of that house very, very badly. I'm not her son, you know, I'm her victim. I've been trying to press charges on her for years. I believe she's a shape changer who is willfully giving in to evil." Further quotes include, "I am God,
Is this
the
an
way,
anime?
the truth, the light."
Are we watching
Ari
an anime?
also taunted officers by saying that, due to a psychologist's comments, they could not prove that he was sane at the time of Beverly's
fuck is
death.
happening right now?
And once again added that all people are demons. When police searched the Liggett
Dude, why is it? I've noticed a lot of people who have like, you know, like manic episodes and schizophrenic episodes, they tend to call themselves God. I've seen like 3 or 4 instances of this, where when people like go manic, they just keep calling themselves God. They just turn into Dennis from Always Sunny. I don't know.
residents, they found potassium cyanide in the fridge, which, once again, is one of the most fast-acting poisons known to humankind. Authorities also found traces of human blood in both the freezer and the bathtub, and to add to this, even found a hacksaw in the family dishwasher. Nicks and chips were noted along the bathtub's edge.
He put it in the dishwasher?
One of the most cool details about this case: the family cat was found dead under Ari's bed. As you can likely guess, after autopsy reports were conducted, they found traces of cyanide in both Beverly's and the cat's bodies. By November, Ari had been evaluated by a state hospital, and experts concluded that he was, in fact, sane and fit to stand trial. However, Ari still pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. And so, gearing up into the legal proceedings of this case, it became very obvious that the main challenge in this trial would be proving if he was sane or insane during the time of Beverly's murder. So, what actually happened to Beverly and Ari? And was he entirely to blame? The short, blunt, and cold answer is yes. Ari had become infatuated with chemical warfare, Hitler, and poisoning, and in the years leading up to 2012, he started to buy large amounts of potassium cyanide. In the build-up to his mother's death, Ari spent—
how? Can you just buy potassium cyanide just like on poison.com? Like, do you just go to lethalpoisons.com and just buy poison? I don't get it.
Several months getting to know how to mix it into lethal cocktails. It is evident that the idea of killing her was very much on his mind, and he'd even threatened her and her sister about this. And sadly, as Beverly had previously mentioned to officers, he often followed through with his obsessive ideas. Investigators had proof that Beverly was planning to kick Ari out of the house once she and Seth got married. Messages and statements made by witnesses would also back this up, and it's very likely that the relationship between her and her son went over a cliff's edge when she revealed this to Ari.
It's fucking crazy.
Likely on the evening of October 14th, 2012, Ari poisoned his mother with cyanide. It is unknown if he also poisoned the cat deliberately or if it merely found some cyanide on the floor. Small side note, but cyanide is known to have an almond-flavoured odour, which could have encouraged the cat to taste it. Which, to be honest, yeah, probably same, because everything almond tastes
the cat
amazing.
died?
You've got almond cake, cherry bakewells, amaretto, the list is endless. Anyway, and either way, both Beverly and his cat perished through his actions. With Beverly dead, he now had to dispose of her body. Ari dragged her into the bath and used a handsaw to dismember her, these actions damaging the side of the bathtub in the process. He spent roughly 24 hours chopping his mother into small pieces before eventually cleaning the house. He then placed her body parts into plastic storage tubs before filling them with olive oil and vinegar. By the way, this oil-vinegar mixture is a crude effort to speed up the decomposition process. He then placed the storage tubs in the back of his mum's car, put the handsaw in the dishwasher, and then tried to feign off all incoming calls and messages. Ari's future intentions were to hide the tubs in a storage unit before eventually placing her unidentifiable remains in the mountains. But of course, he would never get this far. In court, Ari claimed that he was insane and pleaded not guilty. His lawyers would further argue that he had severe mental illnesses, which included but were not limited to delusions and intense obsessions. Instead, they claimed that Ari had purchased cyanide in bulk over an extended period of time, which was more than enough.
Yeah, like, it doesn't matter. Because the thing is when you plead insanity, that basically means that you don't know what you're doing when you do it. You don't consciously know what's happening. But Lil Bro was stocking up on like weapons, cyanide, all this other shit. This guy's been planning this shit for a long time.
To prove his intentions were calculated and rooted in sanity. Regarding Ari's mental condition, the court found that some of his responses were in fact bizarre, but it's also clear that Ari understood where he was and the nature of the interrogation. He also followed the investigators' questions, and when a question did confuse him, he asked for clarification, thus indicating that he fully understood the context of the discussion. During the trial, prosecutors revealed that days before her death, Beverly called Ari's psychiatrist desperate for information about her son. She said that she was apprehensive about him, that it appeared he was off his medication and seemed to be declining. Unfortunately, her suspicions were in fact correct, but the psychiatrist by law couldn't say a word to anyone in Ari's family. The doctor testified that, because of Ari's rights and because of HIPAA laws, she was legally obligated to ignore these concerns. And so, in short, the system had ultimately failed Beverly. She was living with a desperately deteriorating soul, who was naturally aggressive and unstable. And although she could see his and her world now crashing down around them, there was no way to get psychiatric confirmation of
Dude, that sucks.
Moving forward, Ari Liggett was eventually found guilty of
There's nothing
first
she
degree
could have
murder
done,
in the
really.
death of
Like,
his
she's
mother.
just stuck.
As the verdict was read out, he rocked quietly in his seat, refusing
Yeah, it's
to
so
look back
fucking
at
sad
family.
that she tried so hard to help him, and like, he just fucking kills her. Like, it's just fucked up, man.
Members. And after exhaling a deep sigh, he then spoke to his attorneys instead. As a result of this verdict, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Although a very fair and just sentence, it pretty much leaves everyone devastated. Beverly lost her life, and essentially so did Ari. And to add to that, the entire family have now lost 2 members. Cases which involve mental health I find are often quite tricky, because although Ari's actions are totally inexcusable, it does make you wonder what would have happened if he had proper access to medication and therapy. Ari desperately...
What? Wait. Huh? He did. Didn't he? Am I crazy? Didn't, like, throughout the entire video he was talking about how he, like, got sent to a mental institution, therapy, was on a bunch of medication. His mom, like, fucking tried to help. Am I wrong? Bro just didn't want help. Like what, when someone doesn't want help for their mental health issue, what are you supposed to do? Your hands are fucking tied. He even said in the video that the mom was like, you're an adult, like, I can't help you anymore. You got to help yourself. And he didn't.
needed help, yet refused to accept it. Beverly was terrified, yet didn't kick her son out on the streets, and his therapist could have intervened, but was legally barred from doing so. It's a very vicious cycle, and ultimately the system failed Ari, and eventually Beverly too. But I guess the difference here is that Beverly paid the ultimate price with her life. And sadly, this is something we see time and time again. The easy option here is that we call Ari a piece of shit and just simply move on with our lives. But if we're really honest with ourselves, no one can be certain how much of a prisoner he is to his own mental health. Mental health.
Well, I agree to that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I agree with the idea that you don't know how much he is dealing with suffering-wise, but bro had ample opportunities to get help and decided to not take those opportunities, you know? And yeah, I'm gonna call him a piece of shit. The bro's been buying weapons and poison for years. Fuck that guy. Yeah, I am gonna be quick to call him a piece of shit. I see where you're going with the moral route. I agree. You know, mental health is very important, but fuck that guy.
Health is an ever-changing field in the modern-day world, and while we are on the right path, we still fail to provide adequate treatment, prevention, and resources. Ari's mother was the one true constant in his life.
Okay, the thing is when someone needs help mentally and they are not willing to help themselves, you're kind of screwed. Like, what are the mental health professionals supposed to do? Like, hey, we're gonna try to help you get better. No, I don't want to get better. Oh, shit. Well, okay. Here's some medicine. I don't want to take medicine. Oh, okay. So tell me what you're dealing with. I don't want therapy. Oh, okay. Like, what do you do? You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing you can do. Your hands are tied. But yeah, mental health needs to be taken more seriously.
Now it's time to walk away. I hope you enjoyed your stay. Did you laugh or cry or maybe subscribed? I'll thank you either way. You know I will miss you. I hope you return. Tell your friend or your mother to get me more views, please.